served on the UAW panel during the automotive contract talks. I don't think he needs an introduction. Bill?
Thank you very much. And I think that we should thank once again the Alliance for American Manufacturing, the Mayors and Municipalities Automotive Coalition, United Steelworkers of America, and the many representatives who are here for the one purpose of keeping production made in America. And the support that we've gotten extends beyond the individuals here today to include Governor Granholm, the rest of our Michigan congressional delegation, and our Senators Debbie Stabenow and Carl Levin. And I'd also like to ask you to welcome my good friend and our regional director, Joe Peters. And Gary Kimball, who's administrative assistant to Vice President General Holyfield. I stand here as the president of UAW Local 1700, representing the hourly men and women at Chrysler's Sterling Heights Assembly Plant, or Shap as we call it, about 3 miles from here, right here in Sterling Heights. Along with our counterparts at other facilities, we were outraged by Chrysler's announcement of plant closings in their bankruptcy papers, not even 24 hours after ratification of a concessionary agreement intended to keep our plants open. Today, to our members, and I think we have some local 1700 members here today. To our members, keeping it made in America is very real. Keeping it made in America means keeping open the factories, mills, and offices where we have worked. It is easy to see that the impact of plant closings goes far beyond the wrenching effects of the actual jobs lost. Closed plants impact the communities where we live and work. They reduce the tax base for those communities, weaken our ability to provide strong public schools, and reduce property values for hardworking American homeowners. On a more personal basis, plant closings undermine each individual family by reducing our standard of living, halting the steady progress that has secured for each generation of working class children a better position than that of our parents. For the first time in a century, Americans face the prospect that our sons and daughters will do worse than we've done, and that's not the future that we want for our kids. I've worked for Chrysler for 34 years, but I spent 5 of those years out on the street when the Lynch Road Assembly Plant closed, and I was put out in 1979 and rehired in 1984 here in Sterling Heights. And I know something about the impact of plant closings. Plant closings have historically led to a much more serious impact on society through increased violence in our streets, increased illness and suicides, increased domestic violence and divorce. In all these many ways, plant closings lead to the uprooting of lives, the breakup of families, the weakening of communities, and the destruction of the American dream. In the past, jobs worked under the collective bargaining agreements of unions like the UAW and the steelworkers have enabled members to send our kids to college and pursue broader dreams through higher education, often for the first time in the family's history. Taking these opportunities from us is not just an unlucky break, it is theft of what we've worked for. It is a criminal act, and we're not going to sit back and just take it. Since 2003, the UAW has worked with management and has agreed to concession after concession with the promise of keeping our plants open. Labor has come to the table to keep it made in America, and we demand management join us there. Over the years, great industrial plants, such as the one that I have the honor of representing, have done a lot more than just provide jobs. They were the arsenal of democracy 60 years ago, retooling for the needs of the country during World War II. They were the crucible for the melting pot of American society, providing a way up for immigrants from overseas as well as from our own South. They were the engines moving generations of Americans out of poverty, black and white, immigrant and native-born, male and female. Keeping it made in America means keeping hope and opportunity and dreams alive for generations to come. Our membership, the men and women who work at Chrysler, are highly appreciative of the efforts of so many that prevented the liquidation of the company and the wholesale destruction of all our jobs and pensions. Nevertheless, we were shocked and outraged by the addition of 5 more plants to the list of those closings. 5 more American plants are closing that must not close. And I say that not because I have an issue with Mexican or Canadian workers seeking to provide for their families. I say that because I have an issue with the free flow of money and jobs across the borders simply to find the cheapest labor, blind and uncaring to the impact of their decisions on workers and communities here. The city of Sterling Heights, like Warren and Detroit, Centerline and Trenton, and the state of Michigan itself, have come to the pump over and over again to provide assistance and incentives to Chrysler and GM and others to build factories here. Our governments, communities, and citizens made sacrifices in other areas in order to secure the jobs and tax base from new investment. It is despicable that a company can simply abandon its communities, not because the company is ceasing production, but because they find they can produce it cheaper elsewhere. If you will, look with me at 4 of the 8 plants on Chrysler's hit list. St. Louis South have a parallel minivan plant in Windsor, and St. Louis South has already closed despite our efforts to say no. St. Louis North has a parallel truck plant in Saltillo, Mexico, and St. Louis North is closing this year, and to that closing, we say no. Kenosha Engine in Wisconsin was slated to get the Phoenix engine. Instead, it will be closed while Chrysler pushes forward with a parallel Phoenix plant in Saltillo, Mexico. To that decision, we say no! And right here in Sterling Heights, Chrysler has a D segment, or mid-sized vehicle plant at 16 Mile Road in Van Dyke that they have announced to close, while the parallel D segment plant in Toluca, Mexico remains open. And we say no! The impact of this announcement goes far beyond our plant. There are dozens of supplier plants within a 25-mile radius of Shap. There are scores of restaurants and stores, bars and services that depend on the spending habits of our members. And there is the incalculable loss of hope within each family when the breadwinner is kicked to the curb, making a lie of the promise that hard work in America lets you and your family advance. $10 billion in U.S. taxpayer money is slated for Chrysler, and in each and every case where there are parallel plants, the U.S. plant is slated for closing. There's something terribly wrong with that picture.